Hey, Latasha, how you doing? All right, looking good. Great start. Um, Maya Angelou, one of my favorites, definitely good choice. Really good choice. Let me see, Colors of Rainbow. Yes, I get that emphasis to, and I get it. I get everything you're doing and saying. I think that it's done. It's good. You've done a good job creating emphasis where emphasis needs to be made, and also creating meaning by use of color. So this is very interesting. I think there's a couple of things I would recommend, and I think one of them has to do with um, the creativity of the piece. So I'm going to recommend a couple of things here. Now, this is fine the way it is, right? You've got these are left aligned, it looks like, but these should probably be centered. If this is a centered composition, I think it should be centered. They should be centered. Right now, it looks like they're aligned to the left. It looks like this line's a little bit longer, so it wouldn't make sense to center those in this otherwise symmetrical centered composition. That said, I think we can push to creativity here a little bit and pulling this out of the centered composition. Remember way back in week 1 and week 2, we talked about those shapes that we were using to create the compositions. And we talked about, this was before symmetry exercises, but we talked about how to really engage negative space in a composition, how to break the picture plane and do some other overlapping and some interesting techniques to engage the viewer, to engage the composition in a way that you just can't do while just placing the objects in the center of the page. And if you remember, the reasoning for that is, okay, so let's say we have a triangle, a circle, and a square, and we just place them in the center of the page. All right, what that's doing is that's creating symmetry around the negative space that consumes the rest of the page, as we can see here. It's the same principle using shapes or type. What do we know about negative space that's perfectly symmetrical? We know that it's not always the most interesting way to format a composition, because symmetrical negative space just doesn't create visual interest. So that's why we talked about breaking the triangle and the circle and creating different sizes and overlapping and doing all those other cool things that we did during the first 2 weeks of the class. You can apply all those principles right here to this type exercise. What I'd like you to do is this. Okay, so first of all, looking at this composition, I would say there's a couple of inherent issues. I think Rainbow, the kerning in Rainbow is just really super tight. I would like to see that expanded a little bit. And kerning, of course, in review is the space between the individual letters. We can also see very, very tight kerning down here in the line in someone's, much tighter than this is, than try to be A. Now, it almost appears as though this type has been manually condensed, meaning you placed it and you squished it together. And the reason I say it is because we take a look at the counter, or the negative, the hole in the O, and we take a look at it here, and it's a different shape than it is here. So if that's how you got, that's why these letters down here in someone's look so condensed, like they're squished together. So I think the reason you may have done that is to try to make it fit with try to be A. All right, but that's a mistake. You don't ever want to alter the shape, the aspect ratio of a typeface or of a font, and that is the proportions, the vertical to horizontal proportions. So you don't want to alter that at all. You don't want to manipulate type at all. Type should be left alone. You resize it using the character formatting palette, but don't select a typeface, a stanza of type, and squish it together or stretch it vertically. That's a no-no in typography. So what I would like to see is this, as I was saying before, we push the creativity a little bit. I want you to try this. I want you to take this, try to be A, and place it right there, okay? And then take Rainbow and really make it stretch, okay? So try to be A, Rainbow, and then over here take in someone's and right align it, and then say Clouds right there. So we have a little bit of saccadic movement going on, but I think it's going to really, or if you don't like that, in someone's, place in someone's over here too. Okay, so we have this type here, and then we have this big rainbow here, and then in someone's, and then we have clouds. So instead of having center aligned, we have some alignment to the left. The only thing that really is center aligned is the word rainbow and clouds, but it won't really appear so because they're going to be consuming a good portion of the width of the composition, right? So I think that's going to do a really fantastic job engaging the negative space in the composition, and that's what I would recommend moving forward. Okay, so let's go ahead and try it. Really, there's no right or wrong here. There's no right or wrong, so really push your creativity to as far as you can. And that's the idea here. Think about the example. Where was the example? Remember the example had that big ampersand, and the word "and" was on a semicircle. Just really cool stuff, and I really want you to experiment here. Okay, if you have any questions, just let me know.